Moved on to the fourth and final game this week. Super Bowl bound Bradford versus Team Reed, 96 points to 90 points. This ended up being our lowest scoring game, but also our closest scoring game, which certainly added a lot of intrigue, a lot of excitement to this game. Starting on Super Bowl bound Bradford, the victor. A lot of up and down play from him this week. His wide receivers really kind of dumped on him. To be honest, he's got Antonio Brown and Golden Tate both. Obviously AB's best wide receiver in the game, and Golden Tate is certainly no pushover for the Detroit Lions. Brown scored him 7, and Golden Tate only scored him 3. So that's a tough pill to swallow, and that certainly is if you're going to point to anything, that was the reason why he scored so few points. Also looking at his running backs, Danny Woodhead came down with that ACL tear, midway through that game. I'm not sure where that injury happened, but only had 3 points for him. That's going to be a tough hole to fill, I think, for Austin, because I know he's a big Danny Woodhead fan. Great, obviously, PPR back. Terrific catching the ball out of the backfield, but the Chargers are going to have to move on, and so will Austin. I think, despite the results from this game, obviously scoring 184 points last week to 96 this week, that's a tough interchange, but I think it's really recoverable for Wetzel. Sub out Woodhead, and you look at some of his running back depth. Tough Foster is injured, and with his injury history, and it was his hip. Who knows what he's going to be like when he comes back? Who knows what his timetable for return is? But he's got Latavius Murray, who scored 21 points on his bench. He's got Tevin Coleman, who's a growing running back. He was a rookie last year. And I know the Atlanta Falcons are really high on him, but he's got players who can plug in and replace Woodhead in that RB2 role for him. And so I think it's recoverable. I think that the most interesting aspect to Wetzel's game and to his team is that he's got Travis Benjamin, who scored 34 points on his bench, which is tough. But with the injury to Danny Woodhead, Benjamin's much more of a deep threat for San Diego, but he could see an uptick in volume just in the fact that Woodhead's injured. So I think he comes out of this weekend from Woodhead's injury okay, and I think he's going to have to actively hunt on the waiver wire. But I think he'll be back to his normal scoring ways. I think Austin's got a really solid team. I don't know if he's ever going to get back to 184 points, but I think he'll be back to being a really competitive team in the league this year. On the other side of the ball, Reed, I'm sensing a theme here in the league, and it's entirely the reason why fantasy football now is moving to much more wide receiver heavy league, but he's just been plagued by poor running back play, I think, both weeks of the season. This week, Adrian Peterson gets him 3 points, Doug Martin gets him 2 points, and that's just obviously not the type of production you want out of those two guys, and are players who are capable of scoring so much more points. And the most bitter part probably out of this week for you, Reed, isn't even that you lost, but rather that both of those guys are injured. Doug Martin has a hamstring injury, who's questionable and most likely doubtful for week 3. But hamstring injuries linger, and if you come back too soon, you'll end up only getting hurt and being out for a longer period of time. And so teams are generally very cautious with that type of injury. And then obviously it's been all over the news. Adrian Peterson has that torn meniscus in his knee, and the timetable for return on him is absolutely up in the air. I heard if it's a partial tear, and if they're able to do a partial recovery, he can be back in I think it was 2 to 4 weeks, maybe it was 4 weeks. But if it's a total meniscus tear, he's out for like 4 months. I'm not positive on that timetable. You might have to double check me, but either way, no idea when he's coming back. And so I think Reed's really going to have to scramble and even hunt even more on the waiver wire this week to find a replacement for those two players. But on the other side of the ball, or excuse me, for his wide receiver position, still didn't get a lot of help. T.Y. Hilton and Allen Robinson both scoring 8 points. Those guys you expect to score more, especially Allen Robinson, who's projected as a top 5 wide receiver coming into the league this year. And it just tough matchups, and I think you can't bench those guys, especially not Allen Robinson, who's a bona fide wide receiver 1, but he started off the season really, really slow, and you just have to hope that he kind of catches on and that eventually he'll come out and have the type of season that you expect him to have. Despite from a tough week this week, I think Reed can also recover. I think he's going to have a tougher recovery, and I don't think it's quite as immediate as Austy's going to have. But take a looking at his bench, he's got Giovanni Bernard, who scored 29 points for him. Definitely, obviously, could have shifted the tide and made that game a lot more differently. But in PPR leagues, Bernard's probably got a little bit more value and is much more consistent than Jeremy Hill, the other running back in Cincinnati, and so you can plug him in while Peterson and Martin are injured, and then Ryan Matthews, who's on Philadelphia, obviously, is another PPR type running back who I think can fill in and do an adequate role. Obviously not going to get the type of production that you would expect out of Adrian Peterson and Doug Martin, but I think can be suitable fills for that time period. The other aspect that you need to watch out for with Reed, Week 5 is coming soon, and he's got Tom Brady on his bench. And people hate me, but I'm a Tom Brady fan. I think he's got a great first name, but I think he's going to come out, and I think Tom Brady's going to be Tom Brady. I think he's going to score a lot of points, and if they can time Gronk's return alongside Brady's return from his suspension, I think that's going to be a really dangerous combination. And I think Reed's gonna again kind of swing out of this little slump that he's got himself in, and I think he'll be all right. So there you have it. That's Week 3 recap. This has taken twice the amount of time that Week 1 took. So there's that. A lot more analysis. Hope you guys liked it. But again, love to see feedback. If any one of you guys are looking at this video and it's like, I think Tom sucks, I want to do it myself, by all means, shoot me a text. You can give me a link. I can post it onto the league manager's note on the homepage of our league. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. This has been an exciting first 2 weeks. I'm pretty excited, pretty pumped about it. You look at Danny Kopsing and Dan Wallace jumping out to strong starts. I know Kopsing's only 1-1, but has been pretty consistent in his scoring, and is certainly a team on the rise. And as much as I hate to say it, Dan's got a good team, and he's obviously been scoring really consistently throughout the first 2 weeks. And so it'll continue to develop. I'm really excited for how the league's looking, and have a good rest of the week. Be active on the waiver wire, check your injury reports. And good luck in this next week. While we can still hold on to the fact that Tom Brady and Le'Veon Bell are still suspended. So have a good rest of the week, guys. Good luck in Week 3.